Several weeks ago, we talked about the importance of the form of business ownership. How a business is structured is also important to its success. It determines how jobs are designed, whether activities are designed around a specific product or service or a specific function, how much decision-making power a manager has, and how steep the chain of command is. The design has to fit the business model and facilitate goal achievement. Consider the Cheesecake Factory, a very successful restaurant. While from a corporate standpoint, the company wants the experience to feel the same whether you're at a restaurant in Boise or in Los Angeles. It has more than $2 billion in sales and about 175 locations internationally. It also has more than 33,000 staff and serves about 80 million people annually. Think about that, and trying to create an experience that's the same no matter where you're at. It needs to manage its grocery costs, aiming to use 97.5% of all groceries purchased, and its staffing level, so every employee is busy but can still handle the surprise large groups that may come in from time to time. It does this very well because of its structure. It's very centralized with formal policies and procedures that are developed to ensure consistency. Yet, companies many times will strive for creativity and freedom of thought rather than consistency, so they may have a much different structure where the authority is more spread out. W. L. Gore and Associates, which is described at the beginning of this week's text reading, is such an organization. Consider also a company called Bell Labs. Way back in 1945, leaders reorganized to create interdisciplinary teams at Bell Labs. These included chemists, physicists, metallurgists, engineers, all working on electronic technologies. What they were trying to do was encourage creativity. Well, Bell invented the transistor from this. The transistor turned out to be the foundation for a lot of today's technology. This could not have been done in a more rigid, formalized structure. Therefore, by creating these interdisciplinary teams, they had more freedom for creativity and were able to come up with this amazing discovery. Organizations can be considered to have mechanistic or organic structures. The Cheesecake Factory is mechanistic, while Bell Labs and W. L. Gore are described as organic. Mechanistic organizations have a high degree of work specialization, very clear lines of authority, clear chains of command and levels of control, and information travels up and down those chains of command. They encourage employees to develop expertise within their area of specialization, and they're considered to be more centralized. Organic organizations, on the other hand, have overlap in job duties. They provide more authority to local managers. They have a flatter hierarchical structure, and they encourage communication at all levels. They want employees to develop knowledge outside of their areas of specialization, and they're considered to be more decentralized. Which is better? Well, it depends on the organization and several other factors. What's the business environment like, for example? Who are the customers, the vendors, the competitors? Is it stable? If so, it allows an organization to focus on efficiency with little change. If not, an organization needs to be able to change and have a structure to enable it to be adaptive. What's its strategy? A lot of different ones out there, but consider if they're a low-cost producer. This requires efficiency and generally means a mechanistic structure. Could follow a differentiation strategy. The idea is that people will pay more for something that's unique or higher in quality. Generally, they need to be able to adapt to changing environments quickly, and that means an organic structure. How's its technology? Research indicates that the more routine technology is, that is, if a company does the same thing over and over, the more mechanistic it probably is. If it needs to change technologies in order to meet needs of customers, it's more likely to be organic. How big is the organization? The bigger it is, the more likely it needs a mechanistic structure. Yet some companies try to create a feeling of smallness to encourage an entrepreneurial spirit within different units of the company. There are several different types of structure. There's something called the simple structure. As you would expect, most small organizations have this, where all decision-making authority is in one person, usually the owner. Companies like family grocery stores, small retail outlets, small law firms, for example. Then there's a bureaucratic structure. Now, we've heard that term forever. Ever know where it came from? A sociologist named Max Weber. He wanted to develop a framework to make large organizations rational and efficient. He believed what he called the bureaucracy to be the most efficient system of organizing. So a bureaucracy, accordingly, is very formalized. It has specialized job descriptions, centralization of authority, rigid chains of command, and narrow spans of control. Within bureaucratic structures, there are also further ways to structure the organization. They can do that along functional lines, such as marketing, finance, research, and development, or along product lines. So they group the business units around the product, and each division may have its own manufacturing, marketing, and research and development units. You could divide it up by geography, based on where the location of the office is, or by client, organized based on large customers or groups of customers. And then there's the matrix structure. This takes advantage of both the product and functional structures and allows very flexible teams based on experience and skills of employees. It allows the organization to adjust quickly to the environment. It creates two chains of command, though, and two groups to interact with, as well as two sources of information. Based on that, it can create high stress levels for employees if the demands of the functional group are opposed to those of the product group, for example. Xerox and General Electric were two companies that pioneered that type of structure successfully. So why is the organization structure important? Well, aside from determining how effectively an organization meets its goals, it also affects everything involving you, the employee. Communication, job design, freedom to innovate, and how power is distributed. Think of the companies that you've worked at. How would you describe them in these terms? And what type of an organization would you prefer to work at?